Nations rise and nations fall. That very fact is the foundation of everything this entire world stands for. That very fundamental fact, that very fundamental understanding that we all have, that nations rise and nations fall, is a fear that many have that live in the civilized world. I know that I, personally, at times have felt fear that my nation might fall before my lifetime because of an event I cannot possibly even conceive of or control. Perhaps my government will tick off another, and then I might be drafted and I might die before I even see the chance at other things. Perhaps an apocalypse will happen. Perhaps something will destroy the very world as we know it. However, that fear that rides us all, that fear, that baseline understanding that we all have, is something that many of us have dealt with. Even then, what can we do? Truly, there is nothing we can do. What can we do about things that are outside of our control? Get fired at work. Perhaps not even for a reason. Perhaps maybe you weren't the best, but you were a decent worker. And then suddenly, you're fired. You're gone. And there's nothing, not a single thing you can do about it, just because of some staffing cuts. Perhaps you've spent years working on something just for it to fall through, to not ever work properly. Whether it be some kind of program, whether it be some kind of complex device, whether it be some kind of novel. The failures that you can find are a fear that all of us have. Escapism. Now, many of us have gone into escapism. Perhaps our lives aren't great. Perhaps we just need a way to get away from the honestly sad existences that we might live. So that's why, at least I, decided to start roleplay. Now, at first, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I used to go do basically make-believe zombies with me and my friends. And, me and my friend, really. It was just me and him. And we had a few other people join in. But what can you do? It's just make-believe zombies, after all. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. It was just so fun to spend time with my friends, coming up with, cool ways to kill things. The things that all 11, 12-year-olds think of, on the edge of being edgy. That make-believe zombies, that foolish time, that is what started my love of live-action roleplay. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. I was just playing a role. Wasn't myself. I was someone else. It was London. This grandiose individual, ex-police officer. That's what I was. I was just that guy. And anytime we did that specific scenario, I was him. And then eventually, London died. In a foolish battle he should have never started. However, I came up with a new character. I can't remember his code name. It's been a long time. His code name wasn't what I liked to refer to him as, and he gained a whole mythology of his own later, but he was Lawrence Kilkenner. This character, well, I certainly went other places with it. I began writing my very, very shit excuse for a book. It's 14 chapters, and it's called The Hope in Darkness. Now, I can't say I'm proud of that. in retrospect, but it showed me that I loved to just create new things. And of course, that love of creation is what further led me on to do more things. Do more things that I loved. Around that time that I started live action roleplay, about a few years later after that, I started D&D, or rather, tabletop games in general. I first started with just doing some Pathfinder one-off. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't even know what a D20 was. That was my first game. I was just playing Pathfinder. I was just having a good time. And that only lasted one session. Then I was invited to play 2nd edition. Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. Now, I didn't exactly make anyone unique. I can't honestly even remember his name. That's how unimportant he was. The character didn't matter. What matters is that it introduced me to a different form of escapism. Dungeons and Dragons. I played this paladin, and I got my ass destroyed in my first ever battle with some bandits, robbed of everything valuable on me. Chainmail, sword. Me and my buddy, we were just a duo, a partnership of a rogue and a paladin. Or perhaps he was a ranger. I honestly can't remember. Now, I continued on from there. And a bit after I started doing 5e, I started roleplay. Just standard text roleplay. I don't know how I arrived to it at this point, but all I know is that one day I sat down and I think, embarrassingly enough, I started on iFunny. I found an account. Just some random roleplay account. And I thought, oh, this is cool. I didn't know that it was even a thing. And from there, I started to want to do it more and more and more. I was really bad at first. Everyone is. Everyone is really bad at first. You don't know how to properly type. You don't write long enough. Or perhaps you write too long. You don't know how to match a partner. You don't know what intentions. You don't know the etiquette. However, I started off. I started to just have fun. It was nothing romantic or anything. The first few ones that I did were honestly didn't even last that long. It did not last that long. However, I just continued along. I continued chugging along. And I found a love for roleplay. At this point, I found love for 3 different kinds of roleplay. I found love for good old reliable tabletop role-playing games. I found love for good old reliable live-action roleplay. And then I found good old reliable text roleplay. All before I even met my current group of friends when I was still just a sad middle schooler. Now, this love only heightened with time. I kept on doing it. I started Stars That Numbers campaigns, none of them ever lasting that long, but me always enjoying GMing, finding a new passion for myself, creating worlds, creating places for people to explore. Roleplay. It became my escape from reality. Reality was never great for me. I may have had some trouble back in middle school with some not so great situations. And then, especially once high school started, I didn't have any friends. I didn't have anyone. I didn't want to be in reality. Reality was boring. I didn't have any friends in reality. But in roleplay, in tabletop, I could ignore the fact that I didn't have any friends at school, that I didn't have any friends in my classes. I could ignore that fact. I could instead become somebody. I could be whatever I wanted to be at the time. Perhaps a soldier fighting in a war. Perhaps a grandiose god leading along a party of grand adventurers. I could be whatever I wanted to be. Roleplay is escapism. That much is inherent. Now, not everyone goes to roleplay for escapism. Some just want to play a character. Some just enjoy acting. Some employ different methods and strategies to an otherwise very, very interesting field. There is no cohesive decision on what you have to do in roleplay. You can do whatever you want. I just happen to always pick whatever I felt at the time, and it was generally escapism. Now, you may say I'm foolish, trying to escape from reality. I know that, in retrospect, it's not the healthiest thing to do. But escapism isn't bad for you. Not as long as you make the distinction between reality and that escapism. You have to be able to distinguish between reality and other situations. You can't let it personally get to you all the time, or else you'll be emotionally unstable. You can't let that happen. You can't let yourself fall into a pitfall. Roleplay is escapism at its best. Whether you be playing in a party with your friends, doing Dungeons and Dragons, whether you be enjoying some good fun times, live action role-playing in person, maybe even with just a few people, or whether you be doing some text RP with somebody you never talked to otherwise. Who knows why you go to roleplay? Maybe it's for escapism. Maybe it's not. But for those that go for escapism, it truly is escapism at its finest.